Love it or despise it, a few sticky narratives about AEW have emerged since it arrived on the scene in 2019, but many of those prevailing ideas aren't entirely accurate. The Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and Cody Rhodes took a massive risk by starting a company alongside the Khan family. Not only was it a financial wager and a big swing to challenge the WWE, but also there could be negative connotations associated with starting a company as still active wrestlers. It's all too easy to say they created AEW so that they could cement their own legacies in the ring. So there's a perception that the Bucks, and Omega in particular, went into business for themselves with the intention of becoming the faces of AEW and holding all the gold. It's true that Omega and the Bucks have long been recognizable characters in wrestling, so it makes all the business sense in the world to maximize their name value for fans. But they haven't created an environment where they're the only ones who win the gold. Yes, Omega and the Bucks have been champions, but they've also lost and helped to elevate other talent. In addition to Omega putting over longtime friend Hangman Adam Page, the Bucks have lost to Jurassic Express and the Lucha Brothers, among others. In Rhodes' case, he immediately took himself out of the World Championship picture by losing in a match with a stipulation where he'd never fight for the gold again. The EVPs aren't hogging all the television time on a weekly basis. AEW initially prided itself on being more sports than entertainment. It has an official ranking system that keeps track of win-loss records and who should be in line for a title shot. As CEO Tony Khan told Chris Van Vliet in 2019,
I've talked a lot about how I want wins and losses to matter because at the end of the day, that's why you're having the match.
While these numbers make for good talking points for the commentators and interesting trivia as the wrestlers come down to the ring, they're also deeply flawed and operate on the same principle as whose line is it anyway. The points are made up and the rules don't matter. For fans who keep track of the win-loss records, some of the matchups simply don't add up to what the rankings indicate. More importantly, the rankings also go out of the window for storyline purposes, especially if AEW decides to bring in someone new. For example, how did Rush secure himself a title shot against Jon Moxley on AEW Dynamite without ranking in the top 5? Surely, anyone who is in the top 5 of the men's ranking has reason to complain about this, especially if they haven't had a chance to compete yet. The ranking system might make sense on paper, but it definitely isn't as important as AEW has led fans to believe. As of the making of this video, the rankings charts on AEW's website don't seem to have been updated since August 31st, 2022. There's no disputing that the WWE has one of the best women's divisions of all time right now. With names including Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, and Bayley, the promotion has heavily invested in developing its women's division, and it's practically bursting with future Hall of Famers. By comparison, most other women's divisions are going to look weak, but the belief that AEW's women's roster is paper thin is highly inaccurate and an insult to the roster. As of the making of this video, AEW's women's roster features nearly 30 performers. Where the AEW women's division does fall short, however, is in experience. Many of their performers, such as Jade Cargill, are green and in the early stages of their career. At the same time, AEW has added experienced performers such as Serena Deeb and Madison Rayne, and they will surely help the younger wrestlers develop more quickly. There's a belief that no one watches the YouTube series AEW Dark, and that it's purely a platform to dump the performers who can't secure television time, as well as pad out wrestlers' records. But Dark regularly pulls in more than 250,000 views on YouTube, outstripping the numbers of other wrestling shows on YouTube from promotions like NWA and MLW. More importantly, Dark is the ideal gateway for someone who might not have heard of AEW before, or doesn't have access to watch Dynamite or Rampage in their country. Quite often, the show will feature big-name talents like Orange Cassidy and Toni Storm appearing in squash matches, which help to introduce the audience to the personalities and what they're all about. In many ways, Dark operates on the same sort of model as WWF Superstars, which served as a supplement to the programming at the time and as a way to draw more eyeballs to the product. Without a doubt, AEW is more friendly to indie wrestlers who swear by the more modern, choreographed approach to wrestling. That said, it isn't all flips and gymnastics. The AEW roster features a host of wrestlers incorporating different styles that should appeal to both longtime and new fans. There are submission specialists like Bryan Danielson and Daniel Garcia, hard hitters like Wardlow and Powerhouse Hobbs, and even all-arounders who can do a bit of everything. Whether the highly choreographed approach is someone's cup of tea is irrelevant, since AEW promotes more than that. There's something for the different types of fans, and not every performer needs to fit the mold of what every fan expects. Pro wrestling fans have a weird obsession with TV ratings. There's an idea that shows need to achieve a certain number to be successful. The ratings for Dynamite are always in the news, with many detractors saying the fact it doesn't always exceed 1 million viewers every week is a disaster. They claim the show is a heartbeat away from being canceled. Most of these fans are comparing the Dynamite ratings to those of WWE Raw, which pulls in a little under 2 million viewers per week on average. But WWE's flagship show has had a head start of a few decades. More importantly, AEW is in its infancy as a company and is still building its audience over time.
Of course, you're building the brand.
Besides, its numbers for Dynamite outstrip those of many scripted primetime shows. It's often the #1 show on cable on Wednesday night in the coveted 18 to 49 demo. The CW network would compete in any barbed wire match to achieve these sorts of ratings on a weekly basis. Are there a lot of former WWE talents in AEW? Sure, and some of them were released during the mass releases in 2020 and 2021. But that doesn't mean they're WWE's rejects. Many requested their release or refused new WWE contracts to jump ship and start fresh. Take Adam Cole as a prime example. His contract expired in the WWE, and Cole decided he wanted to change. Plus, he got to be a little closer to his real-life partner, Dr. Britt Baker. Bryan Danielson is another high-profile example.
This is probably going to be the last full-time run of my career, and I really want to be able to push the limits of what I'm able to do.
At the end of the day, wrestling is a business, and performers need to do what's right for their careers. Rather than stick around in a place where they're unhappy or feel unchallenged, they should have the ability to seek out new opportunities. Leaving a company doesn't mean someone is a reject. It's a choice. At any job, there are generally non-negotiables, like hours and the conduct policy, but there's wiggle room for other things, as long as the work gets done. AEW operates in much the same manner. While there's more creativity and ad-libbing afforded to the talent than perhaps what has been done in the WWE, it isn't a free-for-all either. When all is said and done, CEO Tony Khan is still the one who yays or nays any idea. The buck stops at him, and the talent can't just do what they want. There are consequences for going too far. For example, after one of Max Caster's raps on Dark got him suspended, Khan revealed that he doesn't script promos, but provides bullet points of what he wants to see in the segments. He also discussed how editors are meant to check and flag inappropriate content, which they failed to do with this incident. In the late 90s, WCW was all about factions. The factions even had their own factions. Remember the NWO Black and White and the NWO Wolfpack? In the early days of AEW, the same could be said of the promotion. It appeared as if everyone was part of a faction, whether it be the Inner Circle, the Dark Order, the Elite, the Pinnacle, the list goes on. But there has been a noticeable change in the air, as the company must have realized too many factions complicate the programming. The focus on factions has slowed down, with many of them being quietly dismantled in the background or falling by the wayside. Yes, there are alliances between wrestlers who may team up on occasion, but the gang wars of the past seem to have largely cooled down. Apart from the Jericho Appreciation Society's endless beef with the Blackpool Combat Club, that is. AEW certainly has a passionate fan base, and like all fan bases, there are good and bad elements to it. There are people who have a good time and behave themselves in the fandom, while there are others who spend their lives locked in battles to the finish in comment sections. But to say the AEW fans love absolutely everything and would pop if two balloons wrestled each other is straight up false. The crowd does usually appear to be invested in the action during the live shows. They definitely love singing along to the entrance themes, but there have been moments when they have gone quiet and not gotten into matches. Scrolling through Twitter during any event, it's easy to find AEW fans openly calling out botches or performances that haven't lived up to expectations. This doesn't mean they've turned their backs on the product. Fans can love something and still be critical of it at times. For wrestling fans, there are 3 constants in life. Brock Lesnar will always get paid more than anyone else, there will be disqualification finishes on Raw, and Tony Khan will have an important upcoming announcement on the next show. The latter point, at least, has slowed down considerably of late though. While Khan does like to use his Twitter account to tease news and announcements for future shows and cards, this is no different from WWE announcers discussing upcoming matches for the next episode of Raw. Khan's approach is merely packaged in a different way. Ultimately, Khan is a promoter who needs to hype up his shows and encourage people to check it out. It's his job to drum up excitement for AEW and give the audience a reason to buy tickets or tune in. Debuts and developments are a key reason fans keep watching. So while it may strike some fans as a bad look for AEW's figurehead to try to stir up conversation from his personal Twitter account, it is effective in drawing attention to the product. Recent developments have essentially shattered this notion completely. Forget about the "we're like a family around here" shtick. There is, without a doubt, bad blood between people behind the scenes in AEW, to the point where the backstage turmoil has become the prevailing story of the promotion since the summer of 2022. Case in point, CM Punk and the Elite. Hangman Adam Page touched such a nerve with Punk during a promo that Punk remembered it for months afterwards. Even while getting surgery and rehabbing his foot injury, he kept it in the back of his mind. When Punk eventually reappeared on Dynamite, he went off script, making sure to collect his receipt and ensure that Page looked like a fool on national television. That culminated with Punk's infamous media scrum comments about Page, Colt Cabana, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega, which led to a locker room brawl. Punk, the Young Bucks, and Omega are still suspended over that fight and were stripped of the titles they won at the All Out pay-per-view that night. Another skirmish between Andrade El Idolo and Sammy Guevara reportedly took place before the October 5th Dynamite. While Guevara competed in that night's main event match, Andrade was reportedly suspended.